maybe a number of credit cards these days, yeah, property, jewelry. These are mostly considered as wealth. So whenever we speak about wealth, we always understand money first. And you can see that how important is money, because it really spins the world around, isn't it? Yeah. Every song also, money, money, money. Yeah. Sit on the table with any gentleman, yeah, group of men, all they are talking about is politics for money, economy for money, yeah, stock market for money. Everybody is just talking about money, money, money. Yet, very few people admit that money also is an important part of our life. However, we understand that it is the most important part of our life, deep down. But admitting is difficult. But one of the greatest commodity that we have, one of the greatest wealth that we have is time. And yet very often time is wasted. Time is also a very, very important wealth that has been given to us. Again, health is also wealth. If there is no health, what do you do with your wealth? Is it not? As we go further into the discussion, we will find out that there are many things that are very precious in our life. And they are wealth. But all that we have very often is a very limited idea of wealth. And that we think only as money. He who makes or she who makes good use of time will always be wealthy. That's why Shankaracharya in Bhaj Govindam, a very beautiful text, as I've been saying, one must listen to or hear or study. Maybe next time we may take that as a text. He points out two things in the first few verses. In the first verse he points out the importance of time. That time is constantly passing us by. Time stays back for no one, not even for emperors, kings, neither for the rich nor the poor. Time is constantly passing by. And one day, time takes over and death comes. And when this death comes, what can we say of the wealth that we have produced, we can take with us? That alone can be true wealth, or useful wealth, which will not only be useful for us here in this life, but also when it is time to leave from here, it will be useful for us. Is it not? Then you can call it as wealth. If that wealth we produce and then we have to leave behind and go empty-handed, then what is use of that wealth? Therefore, the first instruction is make use of your time profitably. Make use of your time productively. Because time is the greatest wealth that we have. Do not waste time. Because if time is wasted, now know something, in the Ramayana, beautiful incident, when Ramchandra ji is about to pick up the bow, but he's still waiting. He looks at the condition of Sita ji and he realizes something beautiful. If something is lost in space, you can always get it back. You can go back in space. But something which is lost in time can never be gained. Time lost is lost forever. It cannot be gained. Therefore, value time as the greatest wealth that we have. And one who makes use of time will always be wealthy. Again, wealth is that which will be with us not only now but also hereafter. That is the wealth that we should aim for. Right? Now you'd be wondering that this Swami is giving a spiritual discourse. Suddenly what is he talking about? Wealth management? Because people have a very, very wrong notion in their mind that spirituality is against wealth. And very often we keep hearing also from people, even the priests, etc., wealth is bad, wealth is terrible, wealth is a devil. Even in some scriptures, if I am mammon, thou shalt be condemned. Everybody seems to condemn wealth. And those who condemn wealth later will ask you for donation. Yeah. Those priests only will ask for, is it not? Yeah. Understand our scriptures, and at least not the Hindu philosophy, does not condemn wealth. Shankaracharya in the very second verse points out, it is not wealth that needs to be condemned. It is our greed for wealth which is to be condemned. Wealth itself is useful to us. It is not to be condemned. It is how we produce wealth, how we use wealth that makes it good or bad. It becomes beneficial or harmful. But wealth in itself is not bad. In fact, bulk of our scriptures is talking about productivity, producing wealth. All your prayers and artis also what? Give me wealth, give me wealth, give me wealth only, isn't it? Yeah. So you go to the temple for what? For God's sake. Then why the hypocrisy about wealth? Our rishis say, do not be greedy about wealth and do not be hypocritical about wealth. Wealth has got its own usefulness in society. If you read Taittiriya Upanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad, even Taittiriya Upanishad, in Taittiriya Upanishad it is beautifully said, when the students left their Gurukula, yesterday that's why we showed you what is education and about the very concept of the schools that Gurudev conceived of. In the olden times also, most schools were residential school where parents, rather than pampering and spoiling their children at home, send them to a Gurukula. And see, the word skula has come from kula only. Yeah. The word skula has come from kula only. And there, in the convocation address, the Guru was sending out students who are going back to the world, clearly gives them the instructions how they should live in their life. They clearly point out, Satyam Vada Dharmam Chara, live a life of honesty, live a life of righteousness. And there continues to say, Kushala na pramaditavyam, bhutyai na pramaditavyam. Do not neglect your welfare. Do not neglect your material progress. This is given in the highest books of spirituality. In Ishavasya Upanishad, there is a beautiful discussion which points out the role of spirituality and materialism in our life. When we say materialism, it means production of wealth. It does not mean what we call as materialism as greed. Points out so beautifully that both are essential in society. Spirituality is not against materialism, because the very Upanishad which gives you the highest spiritual knowledge, given out to the highest renunciates, points out that in this world, materialism and spirituality, if they are opposed to each other, then see what happens. With materialism, you can remove the hunger, thirst, and needs of people. But materialism devoid of spiritual values, spiritual knowledge, becomes sheer aggrandizing, hoarding, greed, and it becomes disastrous. And that we can see around in the world. Spirituality devoid of materialism can also lead a society to darkness, because if you neglect materialism, then look at what's happened to Tibet. Today they do not have a country of their own. You can't be blind to the needs of the country, whether it's the security of the country, whether it's the wealth of the country. Thus it points out that unprepared people, if they take to spirituality without neglecting material prosperity, then they can be in darkness. And so too also, those who take to materialism without spiritual values, they will also be in darkness. What is the use of wealth? With wealth, remove the suffering, the physical suffering of the people. And with spirituality, raise your soul to the heights of ambition. Now very often people try to find out what's the difference between greed and ambition. Very often in this world, we cover our greed in the name of ambition, generally. So we hear it's good to be ambitious, it is motivating, it is driving. Of course, nobody wants to admit that I am greedy. We all know greed is bad. So nowadays we nicely cover greed under the name of ambition. We have to clearly, if we have to manage wealth in our life, we must know the difference between greed and ambition. And a simple thing is, greed will always stress you out. Ambition will always help you grow. Now there are many people who will say, I'm ambitious, I'm not greedy, I don't care whether I gain wealth or not, as long as, I can make my company grow, etc. There also, are you doing it for fame? Are you doing it just to prove yourself? Or you have the potential and you can contribute? There's a big difference between ambition and greed. Therefore, in our program, Make It Happen, in fact, just yesterday I got an email from a teacher, a vice principal of a school, who just recently got that program and wrote me such a beautiful mail. Says, when we sometimes read, we think we know it all. But a simple thing between need, desire and goal. She said, I'm stuck with the program because every time I read, I realize that I thought this was my need, this was my desire, this was my goal. But when I try to find out, I realize very often I take my greed to be my goals. Until and unless we become aware, even wealth production can become only harmful other than beneficial. Therefore, we must know the difference between greed and ambition. Ambition is when you set high goals for yourself, and those goals can be material, they can be spiritual, in which you are not overcome by selfishness, but you express your greater potential and you grow. That is called as ambition. Though in this world, very often greed only is taken as ambition. Thus, spirituality is not against our material wealth. And do you know, very few people in this world, really speaking, are wealthy. You say, all of you sitting here are wealthy, none of you are poor here. Are you or are you